also Adrian from Audio Excellence Canada, Philip, and Jerome. Jerome is a friend who's also an agent. He reps for us. It's actually with Odyssey, I guess, in Canada, or just.
I do all of Canada for Odyssey. Yeah.
So first of all, sorry that it's been so long since our last video.
But Angus was not exactly on the.
We'll get into that in a second. But we've also been very busy despite the lockdown.
It's okay. We're gonna pick on you in any case. You know.
When does lockdown supposedly end?
Second.
June the 2nd.
Third will be theoretically back in the red zone.
So in theory, on the 3rd, we'll be able to allow clients to visit again.
Yeah, like maybe one at a time. Store capacity will be about 0.25 people. We normally have one, so it's about 25% of normal capacity. That's a quarter of a person.
I already know that today's topics are going to devolve like crazy. Angus is monitoring everything. Angus, by the way, has joined us as of, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago? 4
It
weeks
seems
ago.
like a lifetime, hasn't it?
Angus is actually a full-time student
if you talk loud enough, you'll hear it. Okay.
University of Waterloo studying geography, and he's screwing around working here as well.
That's a really long commute. He's just shaking his head. He has no clue about what to do.
I'm coming in from Guelph.
So anyway, topic for right now is about headphones. So we haven't covered any headphones, I think, ever. So this will be an interesting topic to look into. So because Jerome is also the rep for Canada for Odyssey, this will be interesting to see it from his perspective. Philip has also been listening to a whole bunch of headphones. Let me start on my end as to headphones and my perspective, and then I'll moderate these two because I didn't get a chance to listen very much. I started playing with headphones when I was just getting involved in this crazy industry of ours. One of my first headphones was, believe it or not, the Stax.
Stax?
That's your first headphone?
I bought the Lambda, and then I bought the Sigma. The Sigma was this trapezoidal thing.
Yeah.
Looked like two huge rectangular cans that hung off the ears, and it was designed in such a way, supposedly, that it would be offsetting the transducers, and it would therefore give you stereo imaging. In theory. In practice, it never did.
So you're the guy that bought that?
I have one. It's
no, I
actually
mean,
in my
you're
office.
the one person that bought it.
And did you break it? Because it was a bit
it's
fragile.
completely. So I still have it in my office. All the foam pieces, of course, by now are all completely disintegrated. I have no idea if it still works. I have the amplifier as well. I pulled it out for nostalgia just to look at it, but I haven't plugged it in. I also collected a couple of AKGs. My uncle in Singapore was the AKG distributor for Southeast Asia. So I knew about AKGs. I bought some. I had a couple of Grados. I can't remember which ones they are. One of my favorite headphones, believe it or not, was actually the Sennheiser HD40. I think it's called the HD40. It was an on-ear, yellow padded thing.
course.
Very light, very comfortable.
So obviously I have a story about the HD.
Well, let me finish this and then we'll get into all that. So about 9 years ago, 10 years ago approximately, I realized that suddenly the whole headphone movement, personal audio, started to really take hold again, and in a really powerful way in the high end, not just regular audio stuff, but very, very expensive audio. And that's when I was first introduced to Odyssey. By the way, it's Odyssey, Audeze, as opposed to Oddies or a variety of other pronunciations. It's a play on.
Thank you.
on Odyssey, the word.
You realize that every person who walks in here asking for the Oddies headphone,
Yes, Oddies.
you have to. Every one of them asks for Oddies headphone.
And I found out
the
about
worst
Woo
name
Audio,
ever.
one of the really wonderful, good value for money headphone amplifiers. Estel and Kern portable audio players, FIO, and Final
Which you
Audio.
carry.
Yes,
You carry
Final
these,
Audio
yeah.
headphones and a bunch of other ones. So that's when I started realizing that the market was really going like crazy. And then during that time, I was buying a lot of in-ear monitors and expensive ones. We were B&W dealers at the time, and I would buy them. And typically within about 3 or 4 weeks, they would break because they were wired ones. And I would walk my dogs, and at the time, my young dog, he was just a puppy and extremely rambunctious and playful and pull, and his leash would get tangled up with my earphones, and then there goes the $400 in-ear monitors, and I would buy another one until one day I realized this is stupid. I'm breaking this. The life cycle of my IEMs were maybe 4 to 5 weeks. So I decided I'm only listening to podcasts most of the time when I'm walking the dogs. Why don't I just buy the cheapest things I could find? So I would go to Staples, literally go to Staples, and whatever was on sale for $30, I would buy it. And then those would, of course, get torn up as well. And then eventually I realized you could buy, stupid me, Bluetooth IEMs. And then I discovered there was this brand called iJoy. Worst headphones in the world, but they worked. And again, they cost $30. They would last me about 6 months, and I would throw them out. So I would actually buy 4 or 5 at a time.
This does not bode well for our store.
So one of the things about me and headphones, I don't generally feel comfortable wearing headphones. It's a weirdest thing. When I wear headphones, even if they're relatively light, somehow I tense up subconsciously, and my neck and my trapezius muscles get all bunched up.
Oh, I'm hurt. Oh, my neck, my back, my neck and my back. Oh.
And typically within about 20, 30 minutes, I get really sore and I stop listening. So I personally don't enjoy listening to headphones for very long. I tremendously appreciate how good they are. I mean, I really do. It's just that for me, I can't wear them. And then, of course, the other thing is that I feel a little bit claustrophobic as well wearing headphones. So that's me. We'll get into the pros and cons in a minute, but take it away, guys. You guys were listening to certain headphones and you wanted to give your take.
Mostly me.
Okay.
Okay. So the story starts way back in the day.
Yes.
Way back in the day. My dad, I don't know, bought something in order to not bother the family. I always had headphones on. I don't know what the brand was. It's generic, but it looked like something like an early Koss headphone. And I really liked it. And so I always liked headphones. And one of the first high-end purchases I ever made was, after my dual turntable, I bought a pair of Sennheiser HD 420s, which I had for many, many years. And I sold it to a friend later on. So I went through a number of different Sennheisers, including a pair of 410 SLs.
Are they Sennheiser or Sennheiser?
Sennheiser, whatever.
No, I'm actually curious. I don't know.
Does it?
No, it is Sennheiser.
Okay.
Well, it's that German thing, right?
Well, I am part German, so
Well, you are part German, Mr. Fragen.
Which part?
Which part?
the good part. It's
So,
interesting.
despite
It's
the fact
interesting,
I
by the way,
mispronounced
because last week when we were supposed to do this, and I came in, you and I discussed, our previous headphones,
Yep.
what we had, and it's interesting that all three of us have gone through Sennheiser.
Okay. So I had
So it seems
410
to be-
SLs, which I sold to a very pretty girl because I was trying to, interest her. But she bought the headphones and then discarded me. And then I sold my 420s to my next door neighbor. He really liked them. He became an audiophile because I encouraged him. And then I bought a pair of 414 SLs, which were like the original, the famous yellow ones. But these are like a lighter, thinner version. Even though the original versions were quite light, this one's even slimmer and lighter. And I had used those for many, many years. And they were like about $100, $150
Yeah,
maybe.
because the HD 40s were around $50.
Yeah. I always wanted a pair of HD 430s, but as you go up the line, they get bigger and more cumbersome. But that was too expensive for my abilities back then. So for many years, I listened to 414 SLs. Didn't really much like them. They were okay. And I remember there was a big jump to HD 580s. Those were the big headphones for the time. They were
They
like
were 400.
Yeah, $400,
roughly.
$500. I bought 2 used pairs. I still have them. And I bought a pair of HD 600s. So I thought, wow, this is going to be much, much, much better. And then I realized it's just basically cosmetics. So for many years, I was at the $500 or $600 level. And I was quite happy. I improved the amplifiers a little bit.
Which for the time
Yeah, they were very expensive.
was expensive. And to your point, as far as the growth of the market, when I started, again, 42 years ago, I would have never thought someday, never mind being the rep, but I never thought that there would be headphones on the market for $5,000-$6,000.
Well, those taxes were not cheap,
No. Yeah.
Those were on the
but they
higher
were
end.
expensive because Morishito and Associates were
They-
crooks. Well, I
yeah,
should say
they
crooks. They
gouged.
were expensive.
And you realize that for about 2-3 years, I was the sales rep
No, I
for,
didn't know.
for Stax.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh,
So-
with Plurison.
Yeah,
Okay, yes.
that's why I was like, oh, that's interesting.
So in between the 414 and the 580, I did have a pair of Stax Lambdas. I bought a pair, and I really loved the way they looked. The only problem was I had to use a 30-watt tube amp to drive it.
Yeah.
And so that was a non-starter after a few months. I said, I'm not going through with this. And I would wear them to bed, and the tube amp would be like blazing away on my bedside. And that was not a safe thing. So I discarded those, didn't have headphones for a while, then got back into the 580s, and I thought that's a really expensive headphone still too, big money. And then there was the 600, and the 650 came out really quickly after that. I never went up the ladder. I stopped at the 600. And that was not that long ago, maybe 15 years, something in that range. I didn't pay any attention to it. I worked on my business. And then when I started paying attention to it again about 10 years ago, prices were doubled. They easily more than doubled and tripled. So a good headphone was like $1,500. I'm going like, what's going on here? What happened, Jerome? You know the history.
Well, I know the history of Odyssey, but
How much was the first Odyssey headphone?
how much was it?
How much was it?
That's a good question, actually.
It broke
The
$1,000
first one
barrier.
came out in 2008.
Yep.
And just as far as the name, I'll just put it out there. They essentially started in their garage, and like a lot of companies do nowadays, Apple and they were big fans of the movie 2001: Space Odyssey, and they had a poster.
Oh.
They had a poster in the garage, and that's how the name kind of evolved from that poster. Just an
So
FYI.
it basically means a journey.
But
of
I
some
think
sort of-
their first headphone was probably in the $1,500 to $2,000 range. If I'm wrong, they might correct me, but it was never a cheap headphone.
It was never an inexpensive headphone. I actually did not hear them until just recently. Probably around that time, or a little bit afterwards, I found out about Hi-Fi Man, right?
Yeah.
And which was a HE6, which was an extremely inefficient headphone. I've literally have seen or have had clients who would buy Macintosh amps to drive those headphones. their
So
sensitivity
they're
is very
spending
low.
like what, $2,000, $3,000 on
Yes.
the amplifier.
Yes.
See, that's a bit of an extreme for a lot of people. And it's funny because you mentioned like audiophile, and like there are certain buzzwords that I always go whoop because what's an audiophile? Like that might be a subject for another discussion, but and we touched on that last week.
Yes, I called you one, and you said I am not.
I'm not. I think I have a very good ear, but to
Just
me,
one.
just one, because that's the name of my company, right? Can I throw that in?
Yes.
So it's onegoodyear.ca. But basically, I think I have a good ear, but I think that I'm a little bit like you, by the way. When I put headphones on, and not because I have one good ear, but I tend to, because I like to hear what's going on outside. So it's a bit of the claustrophobic thing too. And I tend to take one ear off.
Well, it's one of the reasons out of all the headphones, I typically will only ever use open backs because it doesn't feel as claustrophobic. It feels more airy, and I can also hear some of the background that's happening. I don't like closed back headphones generally.
And yet my favorite ones of the Odyssey line are the closed.
Yeah. Well, we have one of those with the rare alligator or something other covers.
Guess how many alligators were, used in the process?
Hopefully only one.
Okay.
So, Philip, which one did you listen to?
Well, the story goes something like this. I sold a couple of pairs of Mezzi Imperiums, which everybody seemed to love. So I ordered a pair from our favorite distributor. Not our favorite sales agent, but our favorite distributor. And Richard came through and he got me a pair, and I had them at home, and I was finding out certain things about them, what they liked, what they didn't like. It was much better with balanced setup rather than single-winded. So for a lot of people, everybody's using like a 1/4-inch jack or maybe 3.5 millimeters, but a lot of the new modern headphones like a balanced setup. They much prefer it. It sounds much, much better. It's like night and day difference. So I had the Imperium. I'm breaking it in. I'm thinking like, oh, we need a topic. Adrian's put me on the spot. Okay, we could do headphones. And as a sidetrack here, obviously, Jay, who's left us, when he first started, he was the headphone, he was the headphone
that's true,
guy.
Actually. Yeah.
And it only took me 5 minutes to sit him down in front of a pair of Sabrinas, and then he forever changed. So this is sort of in the reverse. So now I have to find out about headphones. So I listened to the Imperium, and then because Jerome's our good friend here, and because we have it in stock, I took home a pair of LCD 3s and LCD 4 Z.
Yeah. Or Z. That you can pronounce,
depending if you're
way.
British, Canadian, or American, right? So British and Canadian pronunciation is Z, and the Americans, they mispronounce it as Z. So I took those home.
We're going to get some seriously interesting hate comments. Go ahead.
Is it Medze or Medzi? I'm just asking for a friend.
Oh, we have to get Richard here.
I think it is Medze, actually.
Yeah, Medze, probably.
And they are.
But they're Romanian.
Yeah, and they, honestly, they are among my favorite headphones.
I did read a couple of reviews about the Imperiums, but I read nothing about the LCD series of headphones. And we've had them here for some time. We've been bringing them in. They've been selling. We're almost basically sold out. Well, many of them we don't have in stock because we've sold them. And we have lots of clients who really, really, really like them. But I knew that the 3 and the 4 that we had here had no hours on it. I had to burn it in for 2 weeks. That made a huge, huge, huge difference. They were basically way too shrill and bright when I first put them on. And so I'll start with the Odyssey.
Sorry, both of them were?
Both of them were. And originally, like you said, I actually much preferred the 3 over the 4.
Yeah, which I kind of expected.
But as they burned in, the 4 was much better.
The 4 was much better.
Much, much better.
And easier to drive, probably.
Easier to drive. So one of the issues that I was having when I listened to all the different headphones, I never change any of the settings, but they're all different sensitivities.
Yeah.
So some of them sounded a little bit less dynamic and softer and lower in volume, and some of the other ones sounded more. So, I didn't try to balance them because there's no real way of balancing. I can't measure it because I can't stick a probe in there to find out exactly how much, the decibels I'm getting. So I had to kind of go on a slightly different bent in order to figure out what was going, how they sounded. So I quite liked the LCD 3 at the beginning, and then when it burned in, it was sort of it seemed to lose some of its resolution, which I guess is
odd. Okay.
Well, because it got a little softer, more relaxed, and then you begin to hear more deeply into what it's presenting, and it was all very pleasant, nice balance throughout. A little bit soft in the bottom end. And in the top end I found it a little bit rolled off, but what I didn't find was a great deal of separation between the front to the back, or kind of like a virtual soundstage. I was in the middle of my head.
So the one thing I just want to point out is, I think, not to get off topic of what you're saying, but I think part of the reason why there has been a bit of a boom in all these headphones that are all of a sudden in the $3,000 to $6,000 range, is that I think a lot of people now appreciate their sound system way more than what you and I grew up with like 40 years ago. And I think that we're trying to get that kind of sound even on headphones. And the only way to do that really is with higher end headphones. And I don't want to put down any, because Odyssey has $600 headphones. And even that might be expensive for a lot of people. But I think that's where the market has gone, is the fact that the gear.
Right. Today we're talking about the edge of that market, an ultimate expression, but maybe not the most expensive, because we certainly know there are more expensive items out there.
Sennheiser
But this is very, very much so right in the middle of what we would consider audiophile.
But to your point, though, I think the threes and the 4Z and even the Medze give you that. All three of them, I think, give you that, amazing imagery that you get usually out of very high-end speakers. And I think that's why the market has changed, is that our way of listening has also evolved.
Certainly the tonality of the three by itself was really good. Everything was pure and natural. We are talking about frequency extremes from what I was hearing, and basically only really after I listened to something else. So there was a lot of A-Bing going on, which I don't really like to do, because by itself, the LCD3 is a fabulous headphone. Yeah. But you got to compare it, and you got to go like, well, how is it not as good, or how is it better, or what is it doing really well? What is it not doing as well? So when I put the LCD4, well, first of all, I thought the LCD3s were pretty amazing, and then I listened to the 4s. And the 4s have everything the 3s have, but bigger dimensionality, again, inside your head, because headphones kind of image inside your head. 5 minutes. We might have to
keep going.
Yeah, it needs. So I put the 4s on. There's way more detail. The refinement is another level altogether. So you can hear around the shape, the detail, the shape, the imaging that's going on inside your head. You can hear all this stuff. I never found it to be pinpoint. I don't know about you, but for me, it's always inside my head, and I can actually feel it maybe here, or somewhere, but inside my head.
When you say pinpoint, like the instruments were.
So a while back, we sold a pair of Jerry Harveys in here. These were the Asto and Kern version, the Layla 2s, and they're quite expensive. They're like $4,000, and that's the only pair of headphones where these are IEMs, big IEMs, and I could hear stuff out here.
Interesting.
That was the only one, and it was like a speaker experience. It was so immersive, and it was so out of my head, out of my body, in the room. But I didn't hear that with the LCD3 or the 4. Fast forward, I now tried the Imperiums, and everything that I thought that the Odysseys did really well, the Imperiums did better. I hate to say that. Not that the Odysseys were bad. It's just the Imperium had a sense of balance that the Odyssey did not quite have in terms of bottom end response and top end detail. All three headphones I listened to were fairly relaxed, easy, very easy to listen to for extended period of times. The Odyssey actually was more comfortable, heavier but more comfortable, which for some people will make a big difference.
And we're back. Sorry, we have to keep cutting out every 30 minutes. Go ahead.
That's right. So I was talking specifically about the Imperiums, and now I know I bought these, but I actually didn't know what they sounded like before I bought them. I just bought them because, I sold a few of them and I could get a deal, so I did. And the reviews have been very positive about that headphone. And when I do listen to it, I do like it. I prefer it over the Odyssey.
It's okay. I'll take you to the back and
Yeah,
knock some sense into you.
That's not to say that it does everything better. It's just for my personal taste, this is what I would prefer. It has a slightly more robust bottom end, and the high end detail is equally good, although a little bit different, a little bit more laid back, but still extended. So that's the weird thing. You get this kind of like, Macintosh has tons of detail on the top end, but it's never aggressive or in the front and we tell people, well, all the details there, you just have to listen for it and you'll hear everything. And that's what the Imperium is like. It's most like the Macintosh. So maybe I already have a built-in prejudice about it. And certainly a lot of people like that headphone. If you want a slightly more audiophile experience, I actually believe that the Odyssey, either the 3 and especially the 4, will give you that. It is very, very precise. But again, none of it is harsh. So that's also super encouraging about high-end headphones. If you want to, I know there are brands that have more apparent detail. The leading edges could be a little bit more, the transitions are more direct and distinct, and maybe a little bit, what's the word? The focus is more on the leading edge, so you hear the detail coming in quickly.
Well, like the Sennheiser, the famous popular one, what's it called? The Sennheiser 900?
800? No.
800. I never liked it. Tons of detail, I just never liked it. And I never felt comfortable listening to them.
Right. So neither the Odyssey or the Mezzi has that approach. It's way more laid back. And the Odyssey is definitely, to my ears, less bass, kind of full and rich, more kind of natural, maybe mid bass. The Mezzi could be seen to be having like maybe a slight exaggeration in the bottom end, like a loudness control.
Yeah, I think the Odyssey, as far as mid bass, I would argue they are better.
It has a clarity to it that's really, really, really nice. So the interesting thing about the Imperium, for me anyways, was that, again, I didn't get an out-of-body, out-of-head experience with imaging. It was like maybe an inch off my head. That's what I felt. It was like the images were extended about an inch off, my skull. And that gave me a slightly bigger sense of soundstage.
Coming back to the side point that Jerome made earlier about why the high-end headphone market really started to explode about 10 years ago or so. I think a large part of it is that as we audiophiles grow older, we were seeing the leading edge of the baby boomers having to also downsize, move from their homes into condos. So I remember one of the earliest high-end headphone setups that we sold, I was stunned. So Macintosh at the time had just introduced their new headphone amplifier. It was like $5,000-$6,000 Canadian at the time. And I was thinking to myself, nobody's going to buy this. This is a lot of money. Who listens to an amplifier that's worth this much money? And then right around the same time, we started becoming an Odyssey dealer. And within a month, we had sold a whole bunch of these Odyssey headphones and 3 or 4 of these headphone amplifiers. I was totally stunned. And so I was having a conversation with one gentleman about it. And he says he had bought a condo in Toronto. There was no way he was going to be able to put an audio system in that room, in the condo. And his significant other wouldn't let him have one anyway, because condos then and now, even worse, are small. They may be very expensive, but they're very small. So the only way he could listen to music was through headphones, and he wanted really good ones. And I think that's part of the reason why we saw that explosion. And of course, once people experience really good headphones, it became, this chase for better, as is the case with audio. So, yeah. But so let's get into a couple of things, maybe definitively. Do we know what the selling prices are for these models that we're talking about?
Well, you're the
If not,
You're looking
The,
at
the LCD 3 is 28,
2,700.
2700
Canadian or U.S.
Canadian.
Canadian, and the LCD 4 is that four and a half?
Six.
It's 6,000. Yeah,
6,000.
$5,999.
Okay. All right, and the Imperium is.
The Imperium's $4,000.
Okay, all right. Let's go through pros and cons of headphones, at least as far as you guys are concerned. What are some of the? Let's start with cons because that's more interesting. What are some of the negatives of headphones as far as you're concerned?
I mean, the one thing that you do hear with less so with the 4Z than the 3s actually. Are we talking specifically of these?
Specific or in general? Yeah.
The 3s are a little heavier. They're
Marginally. They're both heavy-ish.
so that would be a bit of a con. It depends. You see, like everybody listens to headphones for, like in my case, I only listen to headphones for anywhere between half an hour and an hour maximum anyway. I can't even think of once where I've sat down and listened to headphones for, regardless of the brand or whatever. So the weight could be a little bit of an issue.
So I actually found that the Odyssey, and if you look at them, the way they're built, they look flimsy. But when you actually have them on your head, the whole thing wraps around your head, and it's actually very comfortable. Weight's really evenly distributed.
Comfort is amazing. That, but they are a little heavy. And interestingly enough, because you brought up Jay, it has always been a sore point for him. But we did manage to find an Odyssey that he loves that's actually a little lighter. A lot lighter, actually.
Which one?
It's actually the gaming.
Oh, okay. I always found that the LCD X was actually the most comfortable of that upper end brand part of it. That's a very comfortable headphone.
So that would be one of the things that I hear. Like obviously as the sales rep, you hear.
So Walter came in the other day and he needs to have a closed back headphone. We said, well, we could try the LCD2C, which is the same headphone but with a cap on it, so it doesn't send sound into the room. And he did find that way too heavy. So did I. I don't know why it's so much heavier with the cap on it.
I couldn't say.
What are the cons, either in general or specific?
Well, I mean, the whole in your head thing, that for some people is a non-starter.
See, it's sort of like, if you can get past that, right? And again, it depends on how long you plan to listen to headphones, etc. I think the flip side is you're going to get an amazing headphone, like as far as sound quality.
So have you ever listened to Dark Side of the Moon on a pair of Odyssey headphones?
I did actually.
And what was your experience like?
Well,
Was it trippy?
should we pause that for a minute
What kind
and
of
discuss what kind of shape I was in?
what kind of recreational substances were you on?
We're gonna plead the fifth on this one.
That's the classic thing to put on a set of headphones, Kloss headphones, and you're listening to Dark Side of the Moon or something like that, and it's very, very trippy, and it's really immersive with a big sound stage, and you can hear all these weird things going on that for the most part the speaker systems back in the day could not reproduce. And I would dare say that the newer headphones now will even give you a even more greater experience, and you'll hear stuff that's going on that you never even thought was possible.
Yeah, that is true. And there are many times when with headphones I'll be like, oh, that was part of the song, like I never noticed it, regardless of the speakers.
What I find really amazing about headphones, and we're devolving here, but when I play stuff that's really bass heavy, I can actually feel it in my bones, which is that's a pretty impressive thing to do when it's all just localized here. And it's actually going right through your body.
So that's a pro.
It's pretty loud.
Yes.
Obviously, it's a pretty loud kind of.
So for me, one of the big negatives is I've never ever had any kind of experience with headphones where it's allowed me to suspend disbelief. I always knew I was listening to headphones, whereas I've listened to some not well balanced, not good audio systems overall, but yet every so often you go, wow, that's amazing. It's almost as if you were there or they were in your room. So that's for me one of the negatives. Now, it may be that I have not yet been high enough, but no, it's just never.
Which high are we talking about?
It's a different kind of, because you can't really compare the two.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, for me, where I've never ever been to that point where I was that immersed in the music. I always knew I was listening to headphones, but again, I'd be the first to admit I don't think I'm overall a headphone person. I use them, especially IEMs. I use them all the time. But what about some pros, some positives of headphones?
Well, I mean, in general, like you mentioned, when you want to have basically music just for yourself, where you're not bothering your better half.
Yeah, it's very private. Yeah,
and that for me is almost a daily thing.
So here's a little known story for you. With the original Walkman, which was approved by the chairman of Sony Corporation, he thought that the Walkman would be a great uniting kind of piece of equipment. He thought that what happened is that he's Japanese guy, old Japanese guy in a very serene, beautiful house. And he's got grandchildren, and the grandchildren would always make noise, and he wanted something that would allow them to listen to whatever they wanted to listen to, but in a quiet way. So that's why the original Walkman had two headphones outputs, and they would give like one Walkman to his grandchildren, the two of them, and two sets of headphones, and they could listen to the same music together at any volume that they wanted. So the headphones allowed them to kind of unite in a way that obviously didn't quite work out that way, because really what they did was to serve to isolate them, even though they're listening to exactly the same thing. And of course, the positive about headphones, in my opinion, is that it does allow you to listen to anything you want at any volume that you want, and just enjoy it. It's for an audiophile, that's the ultimate expression.
For me, I would listen to headphones if I wanted to hear certain things in the recording that may not be as clearly evident through speakers. Because with headphones, the transducers are literally, inches from your ear. And then the other thing is that you don't have room issues, which can be a real problem if I was...
Wait.
Yeah.
So when you listen to Cowboy Junkies and you're listening to that track we love so much, do you hear the tink, tink, tink?
I do, but I don't hear it as atmospherically and as if I was there at the venue. I just hear it as if it just sounds, directly in front of my ears. But what I do like about headphones, and I think it's perhaps the biggest pro for me, is that even average headphones are generally quite well made, and so they have pretty good linear response, and you don't have your room interaction to deal with. So I was at a client's house yesterday. And one of the rooms that we're working in is very echoey. It's a modern, style, beautiful open architecture and so on, but so lively that on the one hand, when you look at it, it's gorgeous architecture. On the other hand, when you're talking, you're speaking louder and louder because you hear yourself and the echoes of the room, and so you talk louder to make up for that, and it gets louder and louder. It's terrible. So imagine putting speakers in that room. It just would just be drowned out. It wouldn't sound very good. Unfortunately, the room would not allow for that kind of acoustic treatment. So I think for those reasons, for me, a headphone for those applications make a lot of sense.
So, Nolan, sorry, you'll have to strike out the name, but your client, he went from big giant Wilson system to Odyssey headphones with an iPad.
Yeah.
How did he go through? Like you
Well,
spoke to him many
part of
times.
it was just again downsizing and wanting to repurpose the room and not wanting to give up sound quality. And ultimately, Odysseys made the best sense. And if you're going to go that route, and he also has an Esalen Kern SP2000, which I listened to this morning as well. I'd forgotten how good these things are.
Yeah,
It's
it
like
is
a solid block of
It is a
metal.
Well,
and
that's not inexpensive.
it's very expensive, but it's gorgeous. I bought it for that reason. I was so taken by the sound, I bought it, even though I knew I'm not a headphone person. Anyway, we should cut this. This is getting very, very long, and we got another topic to do. So thank you for watching. If you've made it this far, congratulations.
Oh, don't forget to like, subscribe,
Yes.
turn on the notification,
Yes.
and just basically worship us.
Oh my God.
Give us your comments if you like headphones, which ones you like, what are your experiences with headphones, and we always read your comments. We may not always reply depending on time availability, but at least I know Philip and we always look at the comments, and thank you very much. Appreciate it. Adrian from Audio Excellence Canada, Philip, Jerome, and Angus behind the scenes. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.